fall asleep, I may touch you on the shoulder. We're going to talk about soil health, and yesterday you heard from 3 PhDs, so I feel a little significant here. I'm going to talk to a different point of view. My background is I worked for NRCS. I was a soil scientist the first 8 years of my career. Then moved over as a conservation agronomist, working on pastures, and became a state grassland conservationist in Ohio for NRCS. So I mapped over 250,000 acres of soil in Ohio. So I still think of myself as a soil scientist. So the soil is important to me. So my question is, what do you think of soil? When the word soil comes up, what picture does it hit your brain or image? Is it just the dirt? Stuff to sweep out of your, underneath your bed, or sweep under your bed, or pull out your fingernails? Or is it, it's just out there to hold the plants up? Or it's the stuff you fight every day when you get back home this afternoon, tonight. We could call it mud. All that's soil, but when I think of soil, it's a living thing. It's breathing. It has life in it. We don't know enough about it. There's so much about the soil we don't understand and don't know. Some of it's really small, but it's important to us. It's the source of all of our material things we have. For us in the grazing world, that supports the plants. It's our entity ourselves. It's the basis of what we work with and do. So is our soil healthy or unhealthy? Gave a good talk on that. Back protection yesterday. Is your soil healthy? Is it getting healthier? Is it staying the same? Or is it getting worse? I talk tomorrow, at the end of the day, but challenge you to make your pastures better. Our pastures should get better and better and better. If not, then we have to question the management of it. Grassland should improve the soil, and our management should encourage that to happen. The living portion of the soil, it's not the sand, silt, and clay, is it? And soil test, I don't know if the West Virginia one here measures this or not. If you go to commercial labs, it's one of the main tests they do. Just looking at, and it's really the potential of our soil. As this increases, the likelihood of our farm and the likelihood of our soil increases. Now I'm talking about soil organic matter. That's one of the keys I look at. In my farm, we bought the farm in 1984. I grew up on a farm as well. When my wife and I got married and started having children, our original plan was to raise our children on the farm. We both grew up on the farm. And Peter just shared with us that that's pretty unique today. In the population of the world, when there's more people in jails than there are out on the farm. Think about it. We wanted to raise our children on the farm. They learned a good work ethic. And as I go back and talk to the people who've employed my grown children, they're very pleased with their work ethic. So there's good things that come from the farm. But if we look, that's tough to read maybe. At least my color book. When we look at the soil properties, they're biological, chemical, and physical. There's 3 different parts of that soil. The physical part, we can address some of it. We would take in the words of the soil compaction. And that your cows are walking across the field. Well, they're probably frozen maybe this morning. We really can't alleviate that in the pasture fields very easily, can we? You don't want to really go out and till your pasture fields. Crop fields, they use tillage. It's probably not the best way to manage soil compaction. Best way is not to do it to start with. Okay. Remember, I'm from Ohio. You realize the size of some of the equipment they drive across their crop fields now. They aren't legal to drive on the hydrants. They exceed the weight limits. Okay? But have no problem driving across their $8,000 an acre land. Chemical. As I look at the soil chemistry, that soil test you get, potassium and phosphorus. I also look at the calcium-magnesium ratio because that also affects the physical and chemical, biological processes. The biological. How can we increase the biology? We can add more organic matter, the humus part. we grow more life plants. What feeds that biology? You realize you have more life in the soil than you have on top of it? And none of us know the nutrition. For example, nutritionists probably in this room balance rations for cattle, sheep, horses. Anybody, you ever heard of anybody that's balanced a ration or your microbes? What do they need to make the system work? That's the stuff we don't know. I like to look at calcium in our world. We have high magnesium soils. Magnesium tends to tighten the soil up. Calcium tends to make it loose. Calcium also tends to drive the quality of the product. You pay by the quality of your product that you're growing. What are you growing on your farm? Those of us that agree. You growing animals? Or are you growing grass? Yeah. That animal's just harvesting the product for us. It's not really having a deer on it. But it's a living thing. But we look at the plants, and you're probably not paid on quality, are you? Now your animals may reward you if you grow higher quality grass. Will they eat more if it's higher quality? Will they perform better if it's higher quality? Do you know what that is? Are you measuring? One of the key things like this guy. You can't manage what you don't measure. I'm going to encourage you to measure things. You can't manage your checkbook. There's no numbers in it. There's a story I share with my wife. When we first got married, she never had a checkbook. But she kept writing checks. And I told her she didn't put record anything. And I finally said, hon, you can't just keep writing checks. Oh, I have plenty of checks in there. What's the problem? We've got to have money in the bank to cover the checks. And if you don't write down what they are, I can never balance it out. So it was an education experience. Thank goodness she became a really good cook. She was a really good mom. We look at that balance. A lot of the things we have in our soil that we call problems are really go back to the soil in terms of its chemistry, that calcium content. You got weeds. Many of the weeds we have are because we have low soil soluble calcium. Weeds like dandelion, wild carrot, goldenrod. A lot of those weeds thrive in low calcium soils, so they're indicated. One of the other sayings is that weeds are never a problem. Are weeds a problem on your own farm? They're not the problem, they're the symptom. You got to be smart enough to treat the problem, not the symptom. Your carpenter, you keep hitting your thumb with a hammer. The solution is not to get a bigger hammer. Just go to the eye doctor and get your eyes fixed. Solve the problem. Don't treat the symptom. I want to thank the National Grazing Bands. That's one of my other hats I wear. When he's here, he's also on this committee. We put grants out last in the booklet I shared with some of you. The morning we came in and I brought books. If you go down to our booth downstairs, you can pick up one of these. It talks about some of the things. In Ohio, we did one of these, and we looked at the mineral cycle. Okay? And many of you have seen this chart. When Jim Garrett was here, he shared this with you. I use this slide a lot. It talks about the concentration of manure around watering points. And what's this over here? What's another place that attracts animals? Shade. Shade tree. Not shade. It's a shade tree. Or it could just be a tree, not providing the shade. But I bet cows were bundled up under a tree last week. No leaves out here, but they still went to that tree. Trees are an attraction for cows. But we look at it, and we know, and then if you divide it up, you still get that concentration around the water. One of the things we want to know is there's no numbers to this, other than the number of pies, or piles of manure. We want to know what the soil fertility was. So we went, we went to soil and water districts, asked them to pick some farmers in their area that are doing a good job. We went out and pulled soil samples, 6 different ones, 2 from a high area where there's a high concentration of animals, 2 from a transitional where we would typically pull our soil sample, the areas that they're typically grazing, then the low area, which would be the points farthest from the watering point. And so we pulled those. We also pulled manure samples and got 4-H tests from the pasture field, and they were making their hay. We also pulled a hay sample, so we gave them a lot of information to digest. I'm just going to concentrate on our fertility samples here. I may have to step out of your way. On the top here, this is soil pH, and this is on our low areas, the areas farthest from the water. Okay? pH range from 4.8 to 7.5. Organic matter from 0.9 to 4.4. But this is the phosphorus level, and that's what we were really looking at. Those of us in Ohio, we have a thing called the Great Lakes. Lake Erie has these algae blooms that are blamed on phosphorus entering the system. So phosphorus is a big item in our agricultural community. Well, what we found was 2/3 of the areas, or the soil tests, were below the critical phosphorus level. Okay. A few were above in excess, which kind of surprised me. Remember, these are good farmers, so it could have been a field that they put a lot of manure on. Then about 1/3 of them are in this, right where the sweet spot, if you will, where you would like to be. The transitional areas was about 1/3, 1/3, 1/3. So 1/3 of them were below, 1/3 of them were right in the sweet spot. And then we had these in excess. Again, organic matter was quite a range, from 1 to 5.5 or 5.6% organic matter, pH 5.1 to 7.2. So what the point you're getting at, there's a wide range. If you don't test, you don't know. You don't know where you would fall on that chart unless you pull a soil test. We can tell you typically, where you might be. Remember, these are good farmers. Those of us who work in making recommendations, who work with producers, there's lots and lots of pasture fields that are below the critical area in Ohio and in West Virginia. This is the part that was the water quality. 80 or 75% of our soil tests exceeded, were in excess of phosphorus in those feeding areas or watering points. Think about it. Here's one, 520 parts per million. That person would never, ever, in children and grand, would ever have to apply phosphorus fertilizer. These are in excess. These exceed some of the rates we find in the Lake Erie Basin in the line. Google's and Hormone. We have big problems with water quality issues, but they're on pasture fields in southeast Ohio. The problem is it's not, would we love to have that more uniformly spread across the field? Instead of having hot spots and cold spots, let's have a uniform. And that's one of the advantages of having good soil quality is we try to get uniformity across the pasture fields so you're growing good grass. Is this good grass? It has a phosphorus level over 250 parts per million. You think the grass will have high phosphorus levels? We get testing those. Would you want to feed the hay for that? Very heavily? We need to look at these things. And if you don't know, you don't. So we look at the biology then. I'm going to fertility lesson. I want to look down on the soil, the health of the soils, and the stuff you don't see. The biological parts. How do you feed those? What do they eat? I'm going to say, they eat more like the cows. They like high quality feed just like the cows. You can't go out there and spread straw around and expect performance. You can't feed straw to your animals and expect them to grow very well or milk very well. You need high quality feed. So one of the things I talk about with my producers, they know how to build the soil. If they're going to put them pastures, put them earlier. You're going to get some of the higher quality feed from them. Don't wait till it's all stemmy and ugly looking. Settle down and say, oh, Oh, here you go. Bugs, you gotta eat that crap. Cut it down a little earlier. If you're feeding good stuff to your cows, what's coming out of the back of those cows? Good stuff, right? Should be good stuff. So that manure pile should break down real quickly. That's another good way to know if your soil is biologically healthy or not. How fast is the calcite breaking down? My simple mind thinks, and I'm in a good rotation, that manure pile should be going and time the grass is ready to grow. If I walk across that paddock and it's ready to graze, scrub back, and find the calcite, that means something's not working. Why isn't that calcite? There shouldn't be any residue of the calcite. It should be all broken down. Plant diversity. How many of you have multiple species growing in your pasture? You like to see more than one. My pasture, I have 4 grasses, 3 beans, some forbs. Think about it. Your cows like diversity. If I walk across the pasture fields of southern Ohio, I have girls and monocles. And maybe a few weeds, things like that. We don't have that. Then temperature plays a role. We think the temperature of the dry breaking down that residue, but also affects phosphorus. Right now, it's only cold. You think there's much biological activity happening? And the biological activity that makes some of that phosphorus available to our plants and what we're doing here. Do you control the soil temperature on your pasture fields? You sure do. The more residue you leave, the cooler you can keep that site. Is cooler better? Hotter. But look, as you're growing, cool season plants. You like a hot soil? Cool season plants. They like it cool and moist. You take the residue off, or the green part even, you still have a lot of mulch here, but it's 91 degrees. Over here where we have a good cover, it's 77 degrees. Which grass plants are growing fastest? So let's keep it. My good friend, Freddie Long from Tennessee, we've all been Victor Shelton and I, we all were Steve grassland specialists for NRCS, and all at the same time, we this real great, we need to graze taller. We taller residual, grazing manure, even grazing sheep. We all did. We managed our grasses taller just for this reason, because we saw the benefit of keeping it taller. When that soil temperature gets over 100 degrees, 85% of that moisture is lost into the atmosphere, either evapotranspiration or evaporation. What's your biggest limitation growing grass? Water, soil water. Do you want to lose it or keep it? Keep it as long as you want to funnel all that water through that grass plant. The more water, the more plant, the more animals you can support, the more product you have to sell. It's a simple thing. Then if it gets really hot in the summertime, we start killing soil bacteria. Your soil organic matter starts to drop. If I look at overgrazed pastures, erosion is a concern to me, but also the fact that we're losing soil health and soil life. And we have to start that all over again. What's nice about pastures is you have a green growing plant there how many days out of the year? 365 days that plant's alive. It may not be actively growing, but the roots are alive. The corn plant is alive how many days? Yeah, 100 days, northern Pennsylvania. Southwestern Ohio guys buy 110, 120 day corn. When you buy that day, that's how many days those roots are alive. Soybeans are even less. So think about it. Our plants are out there feeding microbes from the roots much, much longer than a crop field can. That's why we like healthy biological soils. The other part is that the biology in soil helps generate nutrients. The rhizobium, those little clover plants, and they're so much improved. Just a little, teach you a little bit to state before, is that the new genetics, clover plants, legume plants, and rhizobia can really improve this. Yeah, you may have rhizobia in your soil, but you have the newest and the best. How do you improve the genetics of your cattle herd? Nobody improves the genetics. You might bring in a new bull, or you go to the semen catalog and pick out new ones and bring genetics onto the farm. When was the last time you brought new genetics to your pasture field? Think about it. So we can build soil organic matter. Biological active soils encourage root growth. There's a symbiotic relationship between water, plants, and animals, but also in the soil between the microbes and the plants. I spent $1,000 last summer going to the soil microbes, looking at just microbes. All week we looked at, or $1,000. We were looking to study microbes. Incredible fungi that actually penetrate into the roots of plants, reach out into the soil and pull water and nutrients from the soil and translocate it into the plant. And they actually are connected to different plants. The same mycorrhizal may also be connected to a clover, the grass plant, other grass plants. And they're sharing things around. And you guys are all connected with your smartphones. Mycorrhizal, big people. I have smartphones and so smart. Look, I'm not the smart phone guy. But we have a lot of activity in our soil, not just the microbes, but the insects we can find, the fungal, and there's a lot of good ones. And there's also hormones that are playing here. Microbiology is also giving off hormones, the plants are giving off hormones, and there's more about hormones that we don't understand. There's a company now, the gibberellic acid, Rhizosphere. Have you ever heard that promoted? It's a plant hormone. It occurs naturally in there. But we have growth hormones, cytokines, auxins, and gibberellic, and stress hormones, but they occur naturally. If you look at this chart, when the plant is growing here in the next few weeks, we have a set of growth hormones. Then as it starts to mature, the gibberellic acid is vegetative growth. This is the rapid growth period. Then as you get into flowering, it sends out stress hormones to slow that plant down. So what do we ask you to do as grass managers, when we start to see roots come out of the seed heads? How to get it back to the vegetative stage. So we're trying to bounce you back to here. I didn't realize until a few years ago it was all hormone. It was not hormone. I never realized before. Again, some of that things I never knew about. I got PhD back. I figured all that out years ago. But understanding. Then the nutrients involved with them. Nitrogen, calcium, phosphorus. Here early on. Over here we get more of the minerals, the micronutrients. And here we get nitrogen involved at the end. Because we're building that nucleic acid for the seed, right? So we're trying to concentrate the genetic known for the next generation into that seed, take some nitrogen. Stresses create imbalances between the growth and the stress hormones. And then the imbalances shift the movement of the sugars. So it's all the hormones we're trying to regulate, not the physical grass. So there's different things that we need to be looking at in the future, and how the different nutrients play a role in those hormone production. And some of us have lived through the years of growing teenagers. And I can remember when the hormones were rampant in my house. I'm so glad when those years passed. I'll probably wait for the grandkids to go through that hormone stage. And think about building the soil. How did God make soil to start with? Or improve soil health? I tend to believe he used animals. What'd you say? Room that's ruled? Room that's ruled. Took that picture out in Kansas. Think about it. Those are bison. There's probably more bison in the United States than there is now in the United States. Then we have cattle and sheep. We got elk here as well. Did God ever roll a bale of hay up the field? That's been armed. Did he ever build a fence? So what we try to do is mimic what God did in some of our work. But understand it's those plants that built that soil. Where's the darkest, deepest, blackest, highest organic matter soils in the United States? The woodland soils? The prairie soils. And it's deep and dark. 16 feet down, still black. How did that organic matter get there? Never gotten involved. Roots. Plant roots. Our grass plants are the unique plants. They can regenerate their roots. You think of another plant. What happens to a tree? You prune the roots of the tree. What do you do when you hoe your garden? Roots. But grass plants have the ability to regenerate their roots. Every year they regenerate 50% of the root mass. Sure, the grass root only lives 2 years. And where does it die? In the soil. So those deep-rooted prairie plants, the roots die off in place. The microorganisms are broken down into stable organic that we are now keeping in our hormone. That's why I say our pasture field should get better and better. How deep are the roots in your pasture field? Managing the root paths. Are you getting those roots down deep? You don't build organic matter by applying stuff to the surface. You feed plants that will come right. And it's the roots that you're trying to do. And then I love this guy. One of them invite to our national race. And one of the things we talk about is purchase soil amendments. You got to think of it not as annual purchases. Many times they were considered capital improvements. We appreciate that. Because our fertilized one-time thing goes to long-term investment. When you line the field, you didn't benefit the first year? Or was it 3, 4, 5 years down the road to see that benefit? So it's just the way we look at things. Can we improve the soil without adding nutrients? How much phosphorus is in your soil? Just what the soil is. More phosphorus in that soil is available. How does it become available to the plant? Help make it available. But the only known way to heal a soil is with animal impact. You know who said that? Alan Saber. Google TED Talk. There's some counters to this. You also go on Google that, you'll get some remarks challenging in some of these things. And I can challenge the challenges on there. Maybe you can too. But there's an impact. And we think of animal impact, it's not just the grazing, it's the foot, the manure. Remember when I started off with that nutrients on those pasture fields were deposited there not by the manure spreader, but by the animals, the grazing animals. But it's how we put them and where. Who's in charge of where the animals do that? Who works for you on your farm? Do you work to feed cows, or the cows working for you? Are you the CEO or just a day laborer? Who makes the most money? The CEO or the day laborer? Which do you want to be on your farm? boss cow is making all your grazing management decisions, you have issues. Because she's not the smartest creature on your farm. You're rightly arguing. Water infiltration. We build that soil organic matter. We get 32,000 gallons of water. Okay. Or 31% of a 10-year storm. Why do I use 10 years? That's what we design our conservation practices on. 10-year storms. Grass water diversions are designed on 10-year storms. For me, 10-year storm is 3.7 inches in a 24-hour period. Last week I got 4.1 inches in a 24-hour period. I exceeded the 10-year storm. First time in 7 years. But in my lifetime I've also seen a 500-year storm and several 100-year storms. And I'm not that old one. But they can happen. I mean, we should be good for a while, at least in my lifetime. If we get to 5%, 80,000 gallons. How many inches of water is that? That's over 3 inches of water. Would your grass like to have 3 inches of water in August? I know mine would. We can store that. But it's only 77% of the 10-year storm. And if we ever get to 8%, 120,000, 124% of the 10-year storm, we wouldn't need any conservation practices. Now, dry damage are all full. First time in 8 years. My pond actually, first time in 2 years, the pond's been. I don't get much runoff very often. On this, the first time in 2 years, I had runoff into my pond on my farm. So where are you at in your organic matter? We look at managing in the future. Manage more by disturbing plants. Diversity, adding more variety to your pasture fields. Feed your livestock with living roots. And the soil livestock, not your cows, but the microbes. And keep the soil covered. Keep it growing. This is a picture of what people talk about. Think about this. This is the same soil. Okay, the soil scientists are to be patent that. But here's the soil that has the organic matter. 17 years continuous soybeans. The soil organic matter went from 4.3% to 1.6. Do you see much places in there for water to move? Do you think there's much soil bacteria or biology going on in that block compared to this block? And then what Peter showed you, the stability of this soil and water. Notice it's clear. And over here, what's happened to it? It's dispersed. So when it rains, it soaks in here, it runs off. And now we have a water problem, water quality problems, and we're losing soil as well. So we need to think about ways we can manage our soil and how we can do it. Basically, we already talked about feeding the same soil. Diversity, looking at warm season, cool seasons. Broadly, it's grasses, forbs as well, but they all have different rooting depths. Okay. Are your grasses rooted down? Where are your roots at? Why is that important? Because we can get by with longer rest periods. We feed the microorganisms. It's how we manage these roots. I think we saw this slide yesterday as well. You know, that's where this slide triggered us to think about grazing taller. We would graze short and we'd probably be over here, and we really want to be here. So if we leave more behind, we maintain the roots longer and maintain more roots into the soil. You've got to keep enough leaf up there to manage. Because where are these guys getting their energy from? The roots. Who feeds the roots? The green. Pardon? The green. The green. The leaves. Because all the energy comes from the sun. There's no energy in phosphorus and potassium, per se. It has to come from the sun. So they get it and they transfer it down into the roots to keep you. You take all the leaf off, then they can't support a very good root system. And then if I have these deeper roots, I get minerals pulled up from deeper in the soil, and they end up on top. Balanced diet. My pastures look. I've added deep-rooted legumes now, otherwise known as alfalfa. Okay. Because I've gone through a series of dry summers and dry falls, so I really thought I needed deeper plants with chicory and alfalfa adding to them. In the spring of the year, we get a high flush of clover, and in the fall, we stockpile a lot of tall fescue to get us through. But in terms of numbers, and the easy ones to look at are these guys. You can see those. When I take my spade out and dig it in, you ought to see 2 or 3 worms in every spadeful of soil. In relationship, look how many bacteria that would be. I can't even pronounce that. But look at the weight. We have a good population of worms, 40,000, that's 1 per square foot. That's only 450, 440 pounds. Well, here, this is 2 over a ton, 2,000 pounds. And you don't see a single one. Same with antibacterial fungi. That's where your organic matter comes from, is those guys. That's the bulk of it. Now, they're really hard to see, but I'm guaranteeing if you have earthworms, you probably have some of these guys. That's what earthworms are these guys. Okay? Grazing initiates all this. If you just had a grass field, and I argued a lot with my friends at NRCS about CRP, the CRP is missing one. The animals. Yeah, there's grasses there, but it's not healthy grass. We're missing ruminants rule. They need to be there to make, because that's what starts everything happening. Remember those hormones in the plant? That really stimulates the plant. There's a lot of give and take. It's not a simple process. It's a complicated web of activity going on between the animal, the plant, and the biology in the soil, and the soil itself. We need to manage that. If you look at that individual root, these are the mycorrhizae coming off of that. This is the rhizosphere that's carrying around. This is where all the activity is really happening. That's the life in the soil, hanging in there. If we get closer and look at it, this is the root itself, porous thing. These are clay particles, and this gooey stuff in between here are the sugars, if you will, make it simple, that the plant roots are leaking out or extruding to feed the microbes. You didn't know your plants were feeding another whole herd of animals under the soil. So not only are they growing leaves to feed your cows, but the roots are oozing out carbohydrates to feed the bacteria. And that bacteria and fungi are living on the edge of this. There you can see the height as it penetrates into the cells of this root and moves around. Didn't see that when I was in school 40 years ago. 2,000 times more than the rest of the soil. And that's just, those were the mycorrhizae we were looking at under our microscope. Got to move along. Plants interact with these mycorrhizae. You can buy biological inoculants. Mycorrhizae. That's some of that new genetics we may need to add to our farm. If we're not getting the production we like, the influence of the soil biology. So one of the things I promote is the use of microbiology or inoculant into the grass seed. You inoculate your clovers, I hope. You buy pre-inoculated seed. Or you buy grasses that'll stimulate your soils to be more productive. Whoops. This is where they were. Make it still. I like this quote. There are more living creatures in a shovelful of rich soil than humans, beings on the planet. Yet more is known about the dark side of the moon than we know about our soil. Think about it. Scientists know more about what's on the part of the moon we can't even look at than we know about what's going on in the soil. There's a whole array of information yet to be learned about. A lot of stuff yet to be learned that we're just starting to see. Last time I was here, this conference was 2015. You know what that year was? It was the International Year of the Soil. We celebrated. My talk was talking about soils and how important it was. Not soil scientists, we probably didn't promote that enough. We made people aware of how important the soil is to us. So we've got to manage by disturbing less. Diversity is critical. Feeding your soil, livestock with living roots year long, keeping the soil covered. You can remember those 5 points, or 4 points. 4, right? I'd be happy. Or if you stayed at 4, think about it. We saw this. We have one of these in Ohio now. Another one of those grants the National Grazing Lands Coalition put together was to get these out to show what happens when you manage your pastures tall. You get water that does flow off. It's clean. Medium canopy, that's where hopefully that's where some of you are leaving and not turning in. We get a little dirty water here, but look what happens if we're very short with that smart. Think about what my pastures would be losing. I got that 4.1 inches last week if they were very really kept. And when I went out and looked at my water, I got water in sediment control basin. That water was clean in those basins that ran off the field. And you could see I was happy. It wasn't happy with water all the time. I was happy with the fact that I wasn't losing any nutrients and or soil from my farm. This is my goal. I want to be sustainable, have a healthy soil that's getting better and better. And if I can see that, that makes me happy. Questions? Yes?
Go back one slide if you would, please.
Sure. Yes.
The containers back underneath the grasses, that's the water that's coming through the material.
Leach and pound.
Right.
So these trays are only 2 inches deep, and they're perforated. So and this is a rainfall, so the water is simulating a rainfall. There's a sprayer on top of that hole right there, going back and forth.
Big shower head.
It's a big shower head, yeah. So we put on 2 inches of rain, but the rain gauges are there. So the water leaches through, and you can see not much of the water. Now, don't feel that you're losing this water because it's going deeper into the soil. We only got 2 inches. I'm not going to dig out a 4-foot cube. Martin did. So that's staying in the soil. It's this part that's running off. We wanted to show you that most of the water is staying in the soil. Here, think about it. Because of that, you're slowing the water and allowing it to infiltrate. That's the purpose. I have lots of data on this, but it's the whole idea of having good. But you can have serious soil erosion on a pasture field. Southern Ohio has more serious erosion on pasture fields than they do on crop fields because of compaction. Overgrazing. Most of our problems come from overgrazing. Grazing too short. It double hurts you when you graze short, because what do you think the root mass is when you're grazing this short? If I'm over here, what's my root mass? So this water can infiltrate deeper into, so I can store more. Here,
that creates biodiversity and more area or more lewis soil.
more permeable soil, so it allows the water to penetrate or percolate deeper into the soil, and it's it's alive. Okay. So I'm going to, which cow's going to drink dead one? So if your soil's alive, it's going to drink more water. It's going to consume it. Dead soil is not going to do this. It's going to run off. And that's what we're doing. We want to try and keep the soil alive with roots. It's another question. Yes.
What's your optimum residual based on your temperature slide real early and then this rainfall sooner or later? You know, we can talk about optimum for grass, carbohydrate reserves, but when you're looking at the soil health and soil temperature, what's your minimum residual to be happy about?
14, 1600 pounds. I leave 1600 pounds. So once it starts, that's not the first one. We'll be grazing here
Early.
Early on. We'll be starting otherwise. Just go ahead. But once we get into the grazing system, I like to leave 14 to 1600 pounds of garden. I have thick pasture trees, so that's about 4 or 5 inches.
Is it
Right.
60? Could easily be 6 to 8.
Yes. So we try to leave. Now, I remember when I'm raising sheep, so I don't really get them. Cattle need to have a little more, get a height to it. Sheep, no. So I used to do the tails. So I'm managing sheep pasture, cattle pasture. So first, we never graze the same pasture. Same species doesn't graze the same pasture 2 times in a row. Cattle go through, and the next time they're grazing the sheep pasture, sheep go over grazing the cattle graze the last time. So we make that flock. Like you rotate the grazing cattle. So I have 2 herds. Flock sheep grazing and a herd. Year and grazing. And then flop them out. Being a true shepherd. I have cattle that goes with vacuum filters for sheep parasites. Cattle. But they really help. But also a healthy pasture helps has healthy animals. So if you start with healthy soil, with healthy plants, grow healthy animals. A lot of the problems with sheep producers and parasites, I believe, can be traced back to the soil. And the soil is, think about having those when you're currently dealing with bacteria. What would they do? Wonderful egg. We all think of biology, microbes, as being evil. That's a small part. The nematodes being evil. There's a whole lot more healthy ones, good ones, than there are bad ones. It's like people. There's a whole lot more good people than there are bad ones. Bad ones get all the vision. Read the newspaper, there's a whole lot of stories about that. Same thing in the soil, there's a whole lot more good biology. I learned a new word yesterday, and I forgot about it. I wrote it down. Was there another?
Rainfall simulator.
Yeah.
Jennifer. Soil temperature affects water coming through. Is that affected at all, or is it just on Earth?
Well, I think some of it. As the soil warms, it becomes biologically proactive.
Yeah, it's not important,
But as you pick up more water, you'll get more water moving faster.
so if the temperature,
Temperature.
we're trying to matter, then temperature's down.
And as you plant become more active growing, temperature rises, so that will also encourage water roots down. Our biggest problem is usually when the soil is dormant or nearing dormancy, it's frozen, and more in the summertime, grass is actively growing, because it's great short. The soil heat up, kill off the top part of the system. And now we have a stable, fine soil, so it isn't going to be biologically active, it's working very well. It's really running that infiltration. And that happens with the biological soil. The healthier soil, the longer it's going to stay biological. Healthy soil stays warmer longer. I never have a problem pushing my temporary stepping post into my stockpile. 3,500 to 4,500 pounds of grass. And I ground it. It can be below zero for a week, and I ground it. Now, once we graze it, then I have more of it when I'm pulling those out. Everything is connected back to the soil, the biological part stops. So does that act as an insulin, that grass, so it's insulating the soil. So it's still biological energy. And it's generating heat. We've got over 2 or 3 tons of animal there. Think about how much heat it has. Large pool, you don't worry about heat large people. They generate a lot. See how much biological activity in that soil. It's generating heat as well. Remember, those grasses aren't dead. They're dormant. So every time any living thing is generating heat, it's respiring. So it's generating a little bit of heat. So once I take the plant forage off, then also taking away some of the insulation is awesome. Locking down biological heat. Inspiration.
Talking about the chemical aspect of the soil, if you're working with soil semi-depleted in nutrients, phosphorus, and then trying to be beneficial for your nutrients or your microbes, are the salts and whatnot in these chemical fertilizers detrimental to the plant? We got to worry about that. Read about it.
Chlorine, the reason we ground specifically limit the amount of salt-based fertilizer because it is living biological plants. They're more worried about the plants. They won't work better set up. We just do decide to the seed. The reason that salt affects the growth microbes are also going to be so yes, we understand the biology in the soil is a community, it's a population, it's always fluctuating. And most of your organic matter are dead organisms, dead microbes, dead bacteria, dead fungi. And you're constantly, that population is constantly pulsing. A lot of food, more of it. Supply of goes down to less. Vegetable property of the corn field. It is high in the fall, and then it's corn fodder or food dwindles. According to you get a lot of pulsating. No, the next spring there's so much. Those that feel the roots better, adding more. Of course, spread the food out. That's one diet. A lot of small meat. soil health, so be it moss-like natural situation, be cool. So it's good time, inside, especially say the north side of the hills and the top side. So,